Hello, we are Amelia and Tanya from Coffee Catchup's podcast. This is Coffee Catchup's Espresso on Crosslands Radio. Tanya, how are you doing?
Good, I am good. And today we are talking about a topic that I don't think gets talked about enough.
No, indeed not. We are talking about living with your parents, which is a really tough one, actually, isn't it? It's quite a big one for a lot of people.
Yes, and guess what, Amelia? I've got some stats.
Shocker.
Oh,
let's go.
I love me
we
some
love
facts
some stats.
and some stats. So, interestingly, what do you think the average age is for leaving home?
Oh, I'm going to say...
Disclaimer, this study was done in 2021.
Okay, so it might be a little bit outdated. I am going to say 24.
Do you know what? You're pretty bang on. It's 24, 25, and then if you live in London, it's up to 26 and 27.
Oh, really?
That's so which makes sense. I mean, London's such an expensive place.
Yeah.
But what do you think that average age was in 2011?
Oh, 2011. So we're talking like way pre-COVID, long time ago. I'm going to go younger. I'm going to go 22.
Oh, she's good at this. It's 21.
Is it actually?
Yeah, you're very good. This is all census information, 2021 and then 2011 when the censuses were done. I can't speak. And who do you think out of men and women are more likely to still be living at home?
Oh, it's quite a tough one.
Or could it be evenly spread?
I am going to go men on this one.
You're right.
Yeah.
She's good.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Yeah, this is if this were a quiz, you'd be getting the prize.
Amazing.
So I mean, it's a big issue in many ways because we can see in the censuses this very obvious thing that's happening is that people are leaving home later.
Yeah.
If we went back to 1990, the 90s.
Oh my goodness.
What is the age people are leaving?
Oh, is it going to be something stupidly young, like 18 or something like that?
Not quite that stupidly young. The average age, because there will be people leaving 18, 16, stuff like that. But the average age is 19 and 20.
Wow.
So in the space of sort of 30 years, you've seen quite a big increase. And it is likely, I think, that we're going to see that continue and continue.
Yes, for sure.
So it's a problem. And it's, everyone can potentially hazard a guess, a very obvious guess as to why that is. Why do you think people are staying at home longer? Are they just lazy? They can't be bothered to move out?
No, I think it's money, I mean, I recently have moved out myself and I'm 27. Thank you so much. And yeah, the whole issue was money the whole time. And I think COVID obviously had a huge impact on all of this, didn't it, really? I moved back from university during COVID and then was not able to move out for another 3 or 4 years, was I? As Tanya knows, it was quite a difficult time in some ways. I get on very well with my parents. I'm very blessed to get on very well with my parents. I know that's not the situation for everybody. But even still, I was sort of itching to have my independence back, wasn't I? And it's not an easy time.
It's difficult. And you have to acknowledge that it's because of the rising cost of living. It's because of house prices. Yeah. I mean, you look at the rate that house prices have soared. When I talk to my parents about when they were sort of my age and younger, my dad was able to buy a house from his first job that he got after leaving university.
Oh my goodness.
So he would have been in his early 20s when he bought his first house by himself with his own income, one person's income on a okay job, but not what you would need today.
Sure.
And, there is a problem around that, and we can't solve the housing crisis in 15 minutes. I wish we could. But we can have a little chat about, okay, we're in this situation where more and more people are living at home. What are the challenges around that, and how can we help make the situation that at the moment you can't change a little bit easier? So that's what we're talking about today, and we're going to be right back having a chat more about that after this song.
So we have talked a little bit about living with parents already. What are some of the difficulties, do you think, for both parties in this situation? Because it's not easy for parents or for the child and now adult, is it?
I mean, I think the problem you literally just highlighted there in the phrasing of that sentence is the child is now an adult living in their parents' house. There are challenges on both sides because it's not probably what either side wanted.
No.
The child, the adult child, this is going to get confusing, isn't it? They want independence and they should have independence. That's the natural way of things. And equally, the parent very much would probably quite like their space and are having effectively a lodger in their house. And so the difficulties will vary depending on your relationship with your parents. But we're talking about privacy, being treated, both parties being treated as equal and grown up. And I think one of the challenges for parents is to remember that this is an adult living in your house.
Yes, for sure.
And to try and stop treating them as your child, even though they still are your child.
Yes, absolutely. I remember when I first moved back into home during COVID, it was really difficult to just things like chores. And it's not that I wasn't willing to do chores. It's that my mum would sort of come to me and say, "Oh, can you just go clean the bathroom?" And I'm like, I am in the middle of something that I actually, is work related. There was a point where I was looking for jobs just after I'd finished my master's degree. And I was just like, I'm in the middle of a job application here. Like, I need to concentrate. Do you know what I mean? And it did lead to some kind of conflict as well. And we did eventually work that out and it was a lot better.
Well
but,
done.
Things like chores, like you were saying, privacy, boundaries as well. Like, no, you can't just walk into my bedroom. Because actually, as much as this is your house, this is my space. Do you know what I mean? It's quite difficult, isn't it?
I'm going to throw another one in the mix.
Oh, go on.
Dating.
Yes.
Dating when you live in your parents' house is so hard. I have gone through in my adult life periods of living back with my parents. They've never lasted especially long because, just because of how it's worked out. But dating, because you can't bring somebody back to your house very easily. And you almost don't really always want to tell your parents straight away that you're going on a date if it's a first date, because then there's a myriad of questions and so that's quite hard. So there are lots of issues around it. And I imagine, I'm not a parent so I can't speak for them, it is probably very difficult having your child live with you as well.
Yes, yeah, I imagine so. I think, parents hopefully love their children very much so and want to spend time with them. And I, again, am very lucky to get on with my parents. My mum was very sort of, "Oh, you're moving out of home. This is sad." But also it's their space. And actually, we forget sometimes as children that they do have their own lives to live outside of us.
Yeah, absolutely. But also I think sometimes your parent wants the best for you as well. So it's frustrating for everyone involved that you're still there. But I also know some fantastic parent, adult-child relationships. Like one of my best mates lives with her mum and it's just the two of them. And they really get on quite well. But I think that's just because it's just the two of them. I think it's an interesting dynamic when you've got two parents and then the child as well. So it's very challenging. And I don't know about you, but I think you can live well with your parents, but you've also got to have ways and coping mechanisms of dealing with it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not all doom and gloom. There are some positive aspects to it as well. But we are going to go into a song right now, but we will be back after the break talking about how we can cope with these things and also turn these situations for good.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have been talking about living with your parents as an adult, which is kind of difficult. We've talked about some of the difficulties, we've talked about some of the stats, but it would not be Coffee Catchups or Coffee Catchups Espresso without talking about the positives, because that's what we want to do.
The solutions,
so,
yeah.
There's positives, there's also solutions. Tanya, how can we turn a situation where you are living with your parents into an easier experience, do you think?
It's really tricky. It's an individual thing. Each individual relationship's important. But you know what they say about relationships? They say communication is key.
Yes, absolutely.
So communication is important. And having an open conversation about how you can facilitate better living. So perhaps it's about, I mean, I remember moving in after being at drama school for a bit, and the thing that bothered me the most was being asked where I was going all the time, what time I would be back. And it was perfectly understandable, because until then, but every time I'd lived at home before then, I was their child. I was under 18. And so they had every right to know where I was going and what I was doing, and every minute of every day. But I knew that I would only fail as an adult to tell them where I was. It wasn't that I didn't want them to know. It's that I knew in order to tell them where I was every second, I wouldn't be able to achieve that. And also that made me feel a bit like I was on a leash. Yes. So I just said, look, I was speaking to my dad, I think, that I'm not going to be able to do this. I will tell you when I am out overnight, so you don't think I'm sort of had a car crash or whatever. But this is what I offer you, and explained why. And then my dad was able to say, oh, this is why I find it difficult. And so starting to understand where the other one is coming from can be a really helpful positioning on it. We also we did a longer episode about this on the podcast.
We did, yeah.
And we named the podcast Changing the Spheres, because it is about changing from being child to being adult, and to having more of an equal relationship, a bit more like a friendship, I suppose, with your parent. And that change, talk about it. What offer to your parent? What are you struggling with? What could I do better to facilitate this? And equally, hopefully, you can say, this is what that I need in order for this to function better. What are your thoughts? Because you've lived with your parents for many years, and I hope perfected it now.
Absolutely perfect. We never had any miscommunications at all. No, I love everything that you're saying, and I think that's so true. Communication is really key, and actually sitting down with your parents, if you're able to, and having that conversation and going, hey, I want to make this work for as long as I'm here, and I'm sure you do as well. Like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about boundaries. Let's talk about, what I need from you, what you need from me, and all of that. And like I was saying before the song that we played about chores and that kind of thing, I kind of said to my mum at some point, I was like, I would really love to know which chores you want me to do during the week so that I can plan them into my to-do list.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a really helpful structure. I need my to-do list. I know I have like a day when I do chores. And I'm like, if it doesn't get done, feel free to nag me about it. But actually, like, this is my plan. Is that okay with you? And also I think something I found really important was maintaining my space. So, I don't know what your situation is, but for me, my space was my bedroom. And actually, I found it really helpful to keep that space tidy, to create it into what I wanted it to be. Obviously, don't get out the paintbrushes if you've not been given permission to do so. But actually just curating that space as much as you can into something that you love. And then that becomes your sort of like, almost like your sanctuary a little bit, and actually like, this is my space. And I've actually found that was really, really helpful.
I think that's really important. This is my space, and this is mine, because you can feel a lack of agency, can't you? Yeah. When you go into your parents' house, you can almost feel like you're going back to being a child. And so actually having your own space and putting up your own boundaries is a really important part of that. But also just bearing with your parents a little bit and giving them a bit of grace.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not going to get everything right. Parenting is hard. And if you show them that and you let them into your life where you feel comfortable, they feel very honoured by that. And if it's a case of all parties want you to move out, saying, look, this is what I am doing to get to this point. Thank you so much for bearing with me, and being really grateful. Like, at the end of the day, if your parents are letting you live with them, they're blessing you with a roof over your head. And actually a lot of people don't have that. So being humble enough as the adult child to say, thank you, and I appreciate it, and I also honour you, is hugely important, so that we can hopefully on both sides be a little bit gentler and a bit more gracious with one another.
Yes, absolutely. That's so true. So unfortunately, we've run out of time for this week, but it's been a pleasure. We have been Amelia and Tanya on Coffee Catchups Espresso on Cross Rhythms Radio. Tune in the same time next week for more. Bye-bye.
Bye.